Oh, what a difference just a few days and a few weeks can make these days with college basketball rosters. Iowa Hawkeye fans experiencing that firsthand with the coaching change, and now everybody but one scholarship player off last year's team gone as Carter Kingsbury says goodbye to Iowa after 4 years with the program. We'll talk about it in just a second. But first, a reminder, please, please, please follow us on social media, Facebook, Instagram, and X. You can find me on X and on Instagram at From the Hawkeye. Again, that's at From the Hawkeye on X and Instagram. Give us a follow, give us a like. Thank you in advance. Of course, Facebook, From the Hawkeye of the Storm. All of our social media linked in the description of this video. Even if you're not active, even if you don't post, you can still follow us. You can still like our pages, and it does help us a lot. Helps us to get the brand out there in front of more Hawkeye fans. Please follow us on social media, From the Hawkeye of the Storm, on all platforms. So the news that we have to discuss on this Wednesday, Carter Kingsbury enters the transfer portal. Carter announcing this on X on social media here earlier today. And we had speculated about this, but it had been kind of quiet from his camp. And he was at Ben McCollum's introductory press conference a couple of weeks ago. There weren't a ton of Iowa players at that presser. Of course, Peyton Sanford was there. He was graduating. And then you had Carter Kingsbury. I think there was probably another guy or two. I think maybe Cooper Koch was there, although I did not notice him in the swarm of people. But the announcement here earlier this afternoon from Carter Kingsbury on his social media, he says, and I quote, "Dear Hawkeye Nation, playing at the University of Iowa, the same school my dad played for, has been a huge blessing. Getting to wear Iowa across my chest and be a part of this program, I've grown so much on and off the court. I'm incredibly grateful for every moment." He thanks Coach McCaffrey, the staff, and of course, the fans and his teammates for all of their support. He says at the end of his statement that he'll forever be a Hawkeye, and Iowa will always hold a place in his heart. His dad was just a great from the 90s, a fan favorite, Chris Kingsbury. So many unbelievable moments. And hey, Carter Kingsbury was a pretty darn good three-point shooter at Iowa himself. The difference was he just wasn't as talented as his dad overall. I don't think anybody's going to deny that. But hey, worked really hard. And it took him 3 years, but he got a scholarship his fourth year. So he did count against the 13 scholarship limit for the Iowa roster this past season. On his career, Carter Kingsbury shot 18 threes, made 8 of them. That's good for 44.4%. Now, I don't know how extensive the data needs to be for him to get calls from D1 programs, but I would guess, given the fact that he earned a scholarship and from recent history with Iowa walk-ons that did that, he'll be able to go find a Division I home and play. Look at guys like Austin Ash or even a guy like Riley Till. I think he'll find a home, and I certainly wish him the best. I thought maybe he'd stick it out at Iowa. Who knows what the conversations behind the scenes were like. We know how much Ben McCollum respects the 90s and respects the 80s and the 90s, the Tom Davis era, and his dad was certainly a part of that. But you can't play favorites, and I'm not sure who cut the tie here, if ultimately this was Carter's decision or if it was Iowa's decision to say, hey, we just can't have you on scholarship. Right now, Iowa has 6 guys on scholarship, so it's not like they're short scholarships to give out. We know Ben McCollum plans on adding more people, but the reality is it sounds like it will not include Carter Kingsbury. As kind of an aside, I mentioned he made 8 of his 18 three-point attempts on his career. He was averaging this past season, he averaged 1 point, 1 rebound, and he basically played in about 7 minutes per game, which is actually more than I would have thought. Certainly played more this past year, and Iowa was not as deep. I mean, Evan Bronze originally was not going to be on a scholarship. When he committed from Belmont to come back home to Iowa City and play for the Hawks, he was not expected to be on scholarship. Now, give him credit, give Carter Kingsbury credit. Those guys showed out, especially in the defensive end. I thought those 2 guys were 2 of the hardest workers on defense, and that makes sense because sometimes if you're not as talented to get playing time, you got to be able to do it on the other end of the floor. And I thought both of those guys deserved the time that they got. And Carter Kingsbury, I don't know, athleticism probably was working against him. But boy, just great three-point shooter. And I have no doubt, like Austin Ash, he'll be able to light it up somewhere and kind of continue the Kingsbury legacy. But best of wishes to him. Now, as it relates to Iowa, man, I kind of alluded to this at the forefront of this video. What a difference just a few weeks make. And you knew some guys were leaving, right? Some guys were graduating, moving on. They were out of eligibility. But just take a reflection, take a look back if you haven't done this at the roster that was here like 3 weeks ago. You have Evan Bronze, who was one of the scholarship guys. So he's out of eligibility, so he's gone. Brock Harding transfers to TCU. Drew Thelwell, his eligibility is gone. Boy, wouldn't you love the NCAA to enact this whole 5-year eligibility thing right now and get guys like Thelwell back, potentially back? Wouldn't that be great? Although I don't know that he wouldn't have a pretty good NIL market out in the transfer portal. You got Josh Dix, who ends up at Creighton. You have Trey Buchanan. There's a walk-on who actually entered the portal yesterday we haven't talked about. Seydou Traore, the Manhattan transfer. He was on scholarship in year 2. He is in the portal. Cooper Koch is the one guy back from the scholarship athletes on this roster last year. He is back. He'll play for Ben McCollum next year. Jacob Cook is not a scholarship guy. He is currently still on the roster. He's the only other guy from last year's roster that's on the current roster, at least at present, but he's not on scholarship. Laji Dembele, have not heard anything about his recruitment. Maybe he's just keeping things on the down low. He did say in his statement when he announced initially that he would keep the option open to return to Iowa. But, man, I haven't heard anything, any traction whatsoever on Laji Dembele, so we'll wait and see. Carter Kingsbury enters today. Peyton Sanford's out of eligibility. Price Sanford transfers to Fred Hoiberg in Nebraska. Luke Laquetta's gone. Owen Freeman, he transfers to Creighton. Chris Taggio enters the portal. Riley Mulvey ends up at Siena. Isaiah Johnson-Arrigo ends up in the portal as well. And, look, we expected this. It's not a panic time. I thought AC Earl and Gary Close walked through this very nicely. If you missed our 2-hour-plus show the other day, right here from the Hawkeye of the Storm, I did clip out a segment of that show, and we'll do that again. Clip out another segment for a future video. It was posted here just yesterday. But I thought both of those guys, obviously one being phenomenal coach at Iowa, one being a phenomenal player, both illustrated the situation that we're in right now and how it's really not abnormal whatsoever. This is what happens when you go through a coaching change. Indiana's going through it. Maryland's going through it. It's basically par for the course. And Iowa going and getting 5 or 6 guys from Drake is a positive. It's a very good mid-major program, a mid-major program that dominated their league, made the tournament, won a game in the tournament. Yes, maybe that's the glass half full approach. Iowa does have a visit set up from a big guy from Grand Canyon. So if you missed that earlier, I reposted, I should say, on Twitter. Iowa will host Grand Canyon forward Duke Brennan. They also hosted Honor Huff for a Zoom visit, and it sounds like Iowa is in relatively strongly on Kansas State guard Brendan Housen. But they've got 6 guys on scholarship, 13 scholarships to give out. So do the math there. 7 open spots as of right now, plus walk-on. So it's going to be a fun few weeks. We haven't even scratched the surface of this. I will be coming out with more videos on the Drake transfers. We've already talked about Cam Manyow. We've also talked about Cale Combs. What we have not yet talked about Isaiah Howard. Still got to talk about the addition of Tavion Banks. So lots to come. Keep it locked right here, folks. If you're not following me on Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook, do that. And be sure you are subscribed right here. Like this video before you head out, folks, and keep it locked right here from the Hawkeye of the Storm for all of your Hawkeye coverage around the clock here on YouTube and on your favorite podcast platforms. We'll talk to you soon.